The sky above the Vellani homeworld burned red and orange. Enemy ships filled the darkness of space like a cloud of hungry insects. Queen Selivane stood at the tall window of her throne room and watched her world die slowly. She was young for a queen. Her mother had ruled for 200 years before the sickness took her. Now Selivane wore the crystal crown, and she did not know how to save her people. The Vellani were healers and teachers. They built hospitals, not weapons. They wrote poetry, not battle plans. And now the Krath Collective had come to take everything from them. "Your Majesty," said a voice behind her, "the enemy commander has sent another message." Selivane turned to face her high advisor. Tomal was old, his blue skin faded to gray in many places. He had served her mother and her grandmother before that. His eyes were tired but kind. "What does Warlord Gorath want now?" the queen asked. Tomal held up a small device. A hologram appeared, showing the face of the Krath warlord. Gorath was massive and ugly, with 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. His voice was deep and cruel. "Queen of the Vellani," the recording said, "you have 7 days. Surrender your world, your people, and your resources to the Krath Collective. Do this, and some of your kind will live as servants. Refuse, and we will burn your cities to ash. We will take your children for our armies. We will erase your history from the stars. 7 days, little queen. Choose wisely." The hologram disappeared. Selivane felt cold inside. She looked out the window again at the enemy fleet. Thousands of warships, millions of soldiers. And what did she have? A few hundred security officers with simple weapons, shields that grew weaker every day, scientists and doctors who had never held a gun. "How long until our shields fail completely?" she asked. 3 days at most," Tomal answered. "Perhaps less." Selivane closed her eyes. She thought of her people in the cities below, mothers holding their children, teachers in their schools, artists painting their final works. None of them deserved this. None of them had ever hurt anyone. "There must be something we can do," she whispered. "Someone who can help us." Tomal was quiet for a long moment. When the queen opened her eyes and looked at him, she saw something strange on his face, hope mixed with fear. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "there is an old story, a legend from 1,000 years ago. I do not need stories, Tomal. I need soldiers. Please, my queen, listen." The old advisor stepped closer. 1,000 years ago, the Krath tried to conquer this part of the galaxy before. They were stronger then, even more cruel. They destroyed world after world. Nothing could stop them. Selivane frowned. "I know this history. The Krath Empire fell apart. Civil war. They destroyed themselves." "That is what we were told," Tomal said. "But there is another story, kept secret by the royal family. The true story." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The Krath did not destroy themselves. They were stopped by warriors from a small blue planet called Earth." The queen almost laughed. "Humans? The traders and merchants? Those small, weak creatures who sell technology and medicine? They have no military. They have no power. They are nothing." "They are that way now," Tomal agreed. "But the stories say they were different once. The stories say human warriors were the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy. They felt no fear. They never surrendered. They would die standing before they would live on their knees." Selivane shook her head. "These are myths, Tomal. Fairy tales." "Perhaps." The old advisor reached into his robe and pulled out a small, ancient device. "But your mother believed them. Before she died, she sent a secret message to Earth. A call for help." The queen stared at him. "My mother sent a message to humans? Why did you not tell me?" "She made me promise to wait, to see if anyone would answer." Tomal's hands were shaking. 3 days ago, someone did. Selavine grabbed the device from his hands. On the small screen, she saw a simple message in the human language, translated beneath. Message received. Help is coming. Hold on. This means nothing, the Queen said, but her voice was not as certain now. Even if humans were once warriors, they are not anymore. They will not come. And even if they did, what could they do against the Krath fleet? I do not know, Your Majesty, but your mother believed. She believed enough to call them with her dying breath. Selavine set the device down on a table. She walked back to the window and stared at the burning sky. Her people were counting on her. Her world was depending on her choices. And all she had was a fairy tale and a message from creatures she had always thought of as weak. Even if humans come, she said quietly, it will be too late. 7 days. Our shields will be gone in 3. The Krath will land their armies, and we will have nothing to fight them with. The door to the throne room opened suddenly. Commander Veth rushed in, his uniform dirty and torn. He was the leader of the palace guard, a brave Vallani who had done his best to protect the Queen with the little forces he had. Your Majesty, he said, breathing hard. Our sensors have detected something. A ship has entered our space. Selavine's heart froze. More Krath? No, my Queen. The ship is small, very small. It came from the direction of... He paused, checking his device. From the direction of Earth. Tamal made a sound that was almost a sob. They came. Someone actually came. The Queen did not let herself feel hope. Hope was dangerous. Hope could break you worse than despair. One small ship, she said. What good is one small ship against the Krath Collective? I do not know, Your Majesty, Veth said. But the ship is requesting permission to land. It carries 1 life sign, 1 passenger. Selavine looked at Tomal, then at Veth, then back at the window where death waited in the sky. 1 passenger, she repeated. 1 human. She thought of the stories Tomal had told, warriors who felt no fear, soldiers who never surrendered, creatures who would die standing rather than live on their knees. Myths. Just myths. But her mother had believed. Her mother, who had been the wisest queen in Vallani history, had believed enough to call for help. Let the ship land, Selavine commanded. Bring the human to me. I want to see this warrior from Earth. She turned back to the window and watched the enemy fleet. 7 days until death. 3 days until the shields failed. And 1 small ship carrying 1 passenger was all the hope she had left. She did not believe in legends. She did not believe in myths. But she was about to meet one. The human ship landed in the palace courtyard just as the second sun was setting. Queen Selavine had gathered her advisors and guards to meet this legendary warrior. She expected something impressive. A tall figure in powerful armor. A ship full of weapons and soldiers hiding inside. Instead, she saw a small vessel covered in burn marks and damage. It looked like it had barely survived the journey. The door opened with a tired hiss of air, and a single figure stepped out. The human was female. She was shorter than most Vallani, with dark hair cut close to her head and brown skin marked with old scars. She wore simple gray armor that looked worn and used. There was no shine to it, no decoration, just metal and leather and purpose. The human walked toward the Queen with calm, steady steps. Her eyes moved constantly, watching everything, studying the guards and the buildings and the sky. When she reached the bottom of the palace steps, she stopped and gave a small bow. Queen Selavine, she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. I am Sergeant Han Yuna of Earth. I received your mother's message. I came to help. Selavine stared at her. This was the legendary human warrior? This small, scarred woman with tired eyes? The Queen's advisors whispered to each other, and she could hear disappointment in their voices. "One soldier?" Selavine said. "Earth sent one soldier to fight the Krath Collective?" Yuna did not look ashamed or embarrassed. She simply nodded. "I am what Earth could send. The journey was long and dangerous. Many would not have survived it." She paused. "I am enough." Someone in the crowd laughed. It was a court official, a fat Villani named Boros, who had never faced danger in his life. "Enough?" Boros said loudly. "The Krath have millions of soldiers. They have thousands of warships. And you think one human female is enough?" Yuna turned to look at him. Her eyes were dark and steady, like deep water hiding sharp rocks beneath. Boros stopped laughing and stepped back without knowing why. "I have fought enemies greater than the Krath," Yuna said simply. "I have won." Selavine raised her hand for silence. "Sergeant Han Yuna, I appreciate that you came so far. But I must be honest with you. I do not believe in the old legends. I do not believe one human can save my world. The Krath will destroy us in days." Yuna nodded slowly. "May I see your battle maps? Your defense positions? Your enemy's formation?" The Queen hesitated. What was the point? But something in Yuna's calm confidence made her curious. "Commander Veth, show our guests the war room." They walked through the palace halls. Villani servants stopped to stare at the human, this strange small creature from the legendary warrior planet. Yuna did not seem to notice them. Her attention was focused entirely on the task ahead. In the war room, holographic maps showed the terrible situation. The Krath fleet surrounded the planet like a noose. Red dots marked enemy positions on the surface where their advance forces had already landed. Blue dots showed Villani defenders, so few compared to the red. Yuna studied the maps in silence. Minutes passed, then an hour. She asked questions sometimes, sharp and specific. How fast did Krath soldiers move? What weapons did they use? Where were the weak points in Villani shields? Commander Veth answered everything he could. He watched the human with growing interest. Her questions were not random. They showed a mind that understood war deeply. Finally, after 3 hours, Yuna spoke. "Your enemy is strong, but stupid," she said. "They fight with numbers because they have never needed to think. They attack directly because nothing has ever stopped them." She pointed at the map. "But they have made mistakes. Here and here and here. They left gaps in their formation. They put their supply ships too close to the front. They expect you to hide and wait for death." Selavine had come to the war room to watch. "And what do you suggest we do?" "Fight," Yuna said. "Not like they expect. Not standing in lines waiting to die. Fight like humans fight. Strike fast and disappear. Hit them where they are weak. Make them afraid. Make them wonder how many of us there are." Tomal shook his head sadly. "But we are not warriors, Sergeant. Our people are healers and teachers. We do not know how to fight." Yuna turned to face him. "Then I will teach you." The room was silent. The idea seemed impossible. Turn peaceful Villani into soldiers? In just days? "Give me volunteers," Yuna continued. 50 of your people who are willing to learn. I will show them what humans know. I will show them that courage is not about being without fear. It is about fighting anyway." Selavine stepped closer to the human. "Why? Why would you do this for us? You do not know us. We are strangers to you. Why would you risk your life for a world you have never seen before?" Yuna was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "On Earth, we have a saying, 'The strong protect the weak.' It is not a choice we make. It is who we are." She looked at the Queen with those dark, steady eyes. "Your mother called for help. I heard her. I came. That is all that matters." Something stirred in Selavine's heart. Not hope, not yet, but something close to it. This human was different from what she expected. Small and scarred, yes. But there was something inside her, something that burned like a star. Selavine could feel it. "Very well," the Queen said. "You will have your 50 volunteers. Commander Veth will help you find them. But I warn you, Sergeant, if this fails, my people will suffer for it." Yuna nodded. "It will not fail. Humans do not know how to fail. We only know how to keep fighting until we win." She turned back to the battle maps and began planning. The Villani officers watched her, unsure what to think. This small human, this scarred warrior from a distant planet, seemed to believe she could change everything. Outside, the Krath fleet still filled the sky. Millions of enemies still waited to destroy the Villani world. Nothing had really changed. But Queen Selavine felt something she had not felt since her mother died. A tiny spark of belief. Maybe the legends were true. Maybe human warriors were real. She watched Yuna work, her scarred hands moving across the holographic maps, her quiet voice giving orders. And she wondered what kind of world could create a creature like this. A creature who traveled across the galaxy alone, walked into an impossible war and simply said, "I am enough." Maybe she was. Maybe she was exactly what the Villani needed. Only time would tell. The training was brutal. For 3 days, Yuna pushed her 50 volunteers harder than they had ever been pushed before. They ran until their legs burned. They practiced fighting until their muscles screamed. They learned to move quietly, to strike quickly, to work together like fingers on a single hand. Many of them wanted to quit. Some of them cried at night. But none of them left. There was something about the human, something about the way she trained beside them, suffered beside them, that made them want to be stronger. On the 4th day, the Krath attacked a medical station on the edge of the capital city. 300 enemy soldiers, heavily armed, moving to capture Villani doctors and medicine. Commander Veth reported to the Queen that the station would fall in hours. Yuna was already putting on her armor when the Queen summoned her. "The station has 200 civilians inside," Selavine said. "Doctors, nurses, patients. If the Krath take them—" "They will not take them," Yuna said. She checked her weapon, a simple human rifle that looked old and well used. "My team will defend the station." 50 soldiers against 300 Krath? The Queen shook her head. "That is suicide." Yuna looked at her with those calm, dark eyes. "That is war, Your Majesty. The strong protect the weak, always." She left before the Queen could argue. The medical station was a tall white building near the river. When Yuna and her team arrived, they could already see the Krath forces gathering in the distance. Massive creatures twice the size of humans, covered in natural armor and carrying weapons that could cut through walls. The Villani volunteers were afraid. Yuna could see it in their eyes, their shaking hands. They had never faced real combat. They had never seen death coming toward them. Yuna gathered them in the station's main hall. She looked at each of their faces. "Listen to me," she said, her voice quiet but strong. "Today you will be afraid. That is normal. Fear keeps you alive, but you will not run. You will not hide. You will stand beside your brothers and sisters and fight for the innocent people in this building." A young Villani named Dae Sung raised his hand. He was barely an adult, with bright eyes that had not yet learned to hide fear. "Sergeant, how can we win? There are so many of them." Yuna smiled, a small and tired smile. "Numbers do not win battles. Courage wins battles. Thinking wins battles." She pulled out a map of the station. "The Krath expect us to stand at the front door and die. We will not do that. We will use every room, every hallway, every shadow. We will make them pay for every step they take." She divided them into groups and gave each group a position. Some would guard the main corridors. Others would wait in hidden rooms for ambush. Some would protect the civilians on the upper floors. "When I give the signal, you fight," Yuna said. "When I say retreat, You retreat to the next position. We will bleed them slowly. We will make this station their grave." The Krath attacked at sunset. They came in waves, expecting easy victory. The first wave pushed through the front entrance, roaring and confident. They walked into a trap. Yuna had placed explosives in the entrance hall. When 50 Krath soldiers filled the room, she pressed a button. The explosion killed half of them instantly. The others were wounded and confused. That was when Yuna's team opened fire. The Villani fought like they had been trained. Short bursts from cover. Move, shoot, move again. Never stay in one place. Never give the enemy a clear target. Yuna was everywhere at once. She moved through the battle like smoke, appearing from shadows, striking with deadly accuracy, then vanishing before the Krath could respond. She fought with her rifle, her knife, and her bare hands. Whatever the moment required. A Krath soldier grabbed her from behind. She twisted, broke his arm, and drove her knife into his throat. Another swung a massive blade at her head. She ducked, rolled, and shot him twice in the chest. Blood covered her armor, some of it hers, most of it theirs. Daesung fought beside her for a time. He was scared, she could tell. His hands were shaking, but he did not run. When a Krath charged at him, he stood his ground and fired until the creature fell. "Good," Yuna said as she moved past him. "Keep fighting. You are doing well." Those simple words gave him strength. He fought harder. The battle lasted 3 hours. The Krath had numbers, but Yuna had strategy. Every time they pushed forward, they walked into another trap. Every room became a killing ground. Every corridor became a grave. Finally, the surviving Krath retreated. They left behind 200 dead soldiers. Yuna's team had lost 12 volunteers, brave Villani who had given their lives to protect strangers. When it was over, Yuna sat against a wall and closed her eyes. She was bleeding from wounds on her arm, her side, and her leg. Her armor was cracked in 3 places, but she was alive, and the station was safe. Daesung brought her water. "Sergeant, you are hurt. You need a doctor." Yuna opened her eyes and smiled weakly. "The doctors are for the civilians. I will be fine." She looked at him. "You fought well today. You should be proud." Back at the palace, Queen Selavine watched the battle recordings. She saw everything: the traps, the ambushes, the impossible courage of 50 volunteers against 300 enemies. She saw Yuna fighting like something out of legend, taking wound after wound, but never falling. She saw something else, too. Near the end of the battle, a wounded Villani lay in the corridor, unable to move. Krath soldiers were advancing. Yuna ran into the open, grabbed the wounded volunteer, and carried her to safety while enemies fired at her from every direction. 3 shots hit her back. She stumbled but did not fall. She kept moving until the volunteer was safe. Only then did she turn and return fire. The Queen paused the recording. She stared at the image of Yuna carrying the wounded Villani, blood running down her armor, face twisted with effort, but eyes full of determination. "What are you?" Selavine whispered to the image. "What kind of creature does this for strangers?" Tomal stood beside her. "She is human, Your Majesty. This is what humans do. This is what the legends tried to tell us." Selavine watched the recording again, then again. Each time she saw something new. A moment of courage, a flash of sacrifice, a refusal to give up. The myths were true. Human warriors were real, and one of them had come to save her world. For the first time since the Krath arrived, Queen Selavine allowed herself to hope. Word of the battle at the medical station spread across the Villani world like fire. People talked about the human warrior who had appeared from the stars. They told stories about how she fought, how she bled, how she refused to fall. Some of the stories were true. Some grew larger with each telling, but they all carried the same message. Hope was not dead. More Villani came to volunteer. young and old, male and female. They gathered at the palace gates and asked to join Yuna's forces. Within a week, her 50 volunteers had become 300. She trained them all the same way, hard and honest, turning peaceful people into something stronger. Dae Sung became her translator and assistant. He followed her everywhere, learning everything he could. He had a talent for understanding people, for explaining things in ways others could hear. Yuna valued him for this. "You have a gift," she told him one evening as they watched the new recruits train. "You make people feel brave." Dae Sung shook his head. "That is you, Sergeant. I just repeat your words." "Words matter, but only when someone believes them." She looked at him with her dark, steady eyes. "You believe. That is why you make others believe too." The Krath did not ignore their defeat at the medical station. Warlord Gorath was furious. He sent assassins to the palace, 4 of his best killers, ordered to end the human before she could cause more problems. They came at night, silent as shadows. They killed 2 palace guards before anyone noticed them. They moved through the halls toward the queen's chambers, where they believed Yuna would be sleeping. But Yuna was not asleep. She had felt something wrong in the air, a sensation humans called instinct. She was waiting in the garden when the assassins tried to cross it. The fight was short and terrible. The assassins were fast and skilled, trained from birth to kill. But Yuna was faster, sharper, more ruthless. She killed the first one before he could raise his weapon. The second died with her knife in his throat. The third nearly caught her with a poisoned blade, but she twisted away and broke his neck with her bare hands. The fourth tried to run. She caught him in 3 steps and ended him without mercy. When the palace guards arrived, they found Yuna standing among 4 dead bodies, breathing hard, her hands covered in blood. "Tell your queen," she said calmly, "that she needs better security." The next morning, Queen Selavine summoned Yuna to her private chambers. It was the first time they had spoken alone since the human arrived. The queen stood by her window, looking out at the enemy fleet that still filled her sky. "I owe you my life," Selavine said without turning around. "Those assassins were coming for me." "They were coming for both of us," Yuna replied. "The Krath know I am the bigger threat. But killing you would end Vallani resistance. Your people love you. They fight for you." The queen turned to face her. "My people are not fighters. We have always been peaceful. We heal the wounded, teach the young, build things of beauty. Now I am asking them to kill and die." "You are asking them to survive." Yuna stepped closer. "There is no shame in fighting to protect what you love. Peace is precious, but only the strong can keep it." Selavine sat down heavily on a chair. She suddenly looked very young and very tired. "I am afraid, Sergeant. Every day I am afraid. I smile and give speeches and tell my people to be brave, but inside I feel like a child pretending to be a queen." Yuna knelt in front of her so their eyes were level. "Fear is not weakness, Your Majesty. Fear means you understand what is at stake. The brave are not those who feel no fear. The brave are those who feel fear and act anyway." "Like you?" Yuna was silent for a moment. "I have been afraid every day since I landed on your world. Every battle, every night, every breath. But I keep moving because there are people depending on me. That is what courage is. Movement despite fear." The queen studied her face, the scars and the lines and the weight of years of war. "What made you this way? What happened to you on Earth?" "War," Yuna said simply. "Loss, pain." She paused. "But also love, family, friends who died so I could live. I carry them with me. They give me strength when I have none left." Before the queen could respond, Commander Veth burst into the room. "Your Majesty! An emergency broadcast from the Krath fleet." They rushed to the throne room, where a holographic image of Warlord Gorath waited. His 4 eyes gleamed with hatred as he spoke. "Queen of the Vallani," he growled, "your human pet has killed my assassins. She has destroyed my soldiers. She has made me angry. His massive hands clenched into fists. I offer a challenge, single combat. My champion against any warrior you choose. If your warrior wins, my fleet will leave your world in peace. If my champion wins, you surrender immediately. The transmission ended. The throne room was silent. It is a trap, Commander Veth said immediately. The Krath do not keep their promises. I know, Yuna said. She was already walking toward the door. Queen Selavine grabbed her arm. You cannot accept. Even if you win, they will not leave. Yuna looked at her with calm certainty. I know they will not keep their word, but my victory will mean something to your people. It will show them that the Krath can be beaten. It will give them strength for the real battle to come. And if you lose? Yuna smiled, a small and tired smile. I will not lose. Humans do not know how to lose. We only know how to die standing. She gently removed the Queen's hand from her arm. Send word to the Krath. Tell them I accept the challenge. Their champion against me, in 3 days. She walked out of the throne room before anyone could stop her. Queen Selavine watched her go, feeling something twist in her chest. This human, this scarred warrior from a distant star, was walking toward death to give the Vallani hope. The Queen had never met anyone like her. She prayed to the old gods that she would not have to watch her die. The duel was set on a dead moon between the two fleets, a flat circle of gray stone surrounded by rocks and dust. No air, no life, no hope. Both sides sent ships to watch. The Vallani came to pray for their human champion. The Krath came to watch her die. Yuna prepared in silence. She checked her armor, sharpened her knife, stretched her muscles. Her movements were slow and careful, like a ritual she had performed 1,000 times before. Queen Selavine came to see her before the shuttle departed. The Queen held something in her hands, a small white flower with silver petals. This is a Vallani bloom, the Queen said softly. We give it to those we wish to protect. It means courage in darkness. She held it out to Yuna. Please take it. Yuna looked at the flower for a long moment. Then she took it gently and tucked it inside her armor, close to her heart. I will return it to you, she said, when this is over. The Queen's eyes were wet. I believe you will. Yuna nodded once, then walked to the shuttle without looking back. On the dead moon, the two champions stood facing each other across the stone circle. The Krath champion was called the Blood Sun, Warlord Gorath's own warrior. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor thicker than steel. His 4 arms held 4 different weapons. His 4 eyes burned with bloodlust. Yuna looked small beside him, a tiny figure in gray armor holding only a sword and a knife. The Krath watching laughed at the sight. Little human, the Blood Sun growled. I will enjoy crushing you. Yuna said nothing. She just watched him, studied him, waited. The signal to begin was a blast of light from the watching ships. The Blood Sun charged immediately, all 4 arms swinging, weapons cutting through the air. He was fast. Faster than anything that size should be. Yuna barely dodged the first strike. The second caught her shoulder and sent her spinning. She rolled and came up bleeding, her armor cracked. The Blood Sun laughed. Is this the best humanity can offer? A small female who bleeds so easily? Yuna attacked. She was quick, her blade finding gaps in his armor, drawing blood, but the cuts were shallow. His armor was too thick, his body too strong. He backhanded her, and she flew through the air, crashing into the stone ground. The Vallani watching cried out in fear. The Krath roared with joy. Yuna stood up. The Blood Sun hit her again, harder. She went down, bones cracking, blood pouring from her nose. Her armor was failing. Her body was breaking. She stood up. Again and again he knocked her down. Again and again she rose. Her face was a mask of blood. Her left arm hung limp at her side. But she kept standing, kept fighting, kept refusing to die. "Why won't you stay down?" the Blood Sun screamed in frustration. "You are broken. You are finished. Just die." Yuna spat blood onto the gray stone. Her voice was rough but clear. "Because dying is easy. Living for something is hard." She raised her sword with her one good arm. "And I have people to protect." She attacked again, but this time different. She was not trying to wound him. She was watching, learning, understanding. Every time he struck her down, she saw something new, a pattern in his movement, a gap in his defense, a weakness he did not know he had. The Blood Sun grabbed her by the throat and lifted her off the ground. His face was close to hers, his breath hot and foul. "Any last words, human?" Yuna smiled through her blood. "Yes. Thank you for showing me your weakness." She drove her knife into his eye. He screamed and dropped her. She fell hard but rolled to her feet. He was blind on one side now, staggering in pain and rage. He swung wildly, but she was already moving. She ducked under his arms, came up behind him, and drove her sword into the gap where his neck met his shoulder. The Blood Sun fell to his knees. He tried to speak, but blood filled his mouth. He looked at the small human standing before him, and for the first time, fear filled his remaining eyes. "What are you?" he whispered. "I am human," Yuna said, "and humans never give up." She pulled her sword free. The Blood Sun fell forward and did not move again. Silence covered the dead moon. The Krath were frozen in shock. The Vellani were frozen in disbelief. Their champion had won. The small, broken, bleeding human had killed the Blood Sun with one arm and half her strength. Then the Vellani erupted in cheers. Their voices filled the communication channels, joy and hope and amazement all mixed together. Queen Selavine was crying as she watched. "She did it," she whispered. "She actually did it." But Yuna did not celebrate. She stood over her fallen enemy and looked up at the Krath ships. She was waiting for what she knew would come. Warlord Gorath's voice thundered across all channels. "Enough! This means nothing! Destroy them all! Full attack! Now!" The Krath fleet began to move. Ships powered up their weapons. Fighters launched from their bays. The promise of peace was forgotten. Commander Veth's voice came through the Vellani communications. "They broke their word! They are attacking! Everyone fall back!" But Yuna's voice came through clearly, cutting through the panic. "Do not retreat, do not fear. This was always the plan." The Queen grabbed the communication device. "What do you mean? What plan?" Yuna looked directly at the camera in her helmet, her bloody face somehow peaceful. "I was never meant to win alone, Your Majesty. I was meant to buy time, to give hope, to show your people what humans can do." She paused, "and to send a signal." Behind the Krath fleet, space began to glow. Bright points of light appeared from nowhere, growing larger and larger. Ships, human ships, 40 warships emerging from hidden space, their weapons already charging. "This is Captain G1 of the Earth Defense Fleet," a new voice said across all channels. "Sergeant Han Yuna, your signal was received. The cavalry has arrived." Yuna allowed herself one small smile. Then she collapsed onto the gray stone, her broken body finally giving out. But she had done enough. The real battle was just beginning. The human fleet hit the Krath like a thunderstorm hitting calm water. The Earth warships were smaller than Krath vessels, but they were faster, smarter, and commanded by crews who had spent their whole lives preparing for this kind of war. Captain G1 directed the attack from her bridge. "All ships, target their supply lines. Cut them off from their fuel and ammunition. Make them hungry and scared." The human ships moved in perfect formation, striking at the Krath fleet's weakest points. They did not try to destroy the massive warships directly. Instead, they targeted the supply vessels, the fuel carriers, the ammunition transports. Within an hour, the Krath fleet was bleeding from 100 wounds. On the surface, Yuna woke up in a medical shuttle racing back to the palace. Volani doctors were working on her wounds, their hands gentle but worried. "She should not be awake," one of them said. "Her injuries are too severe." Yuna sat up despite their protests. Her body screamed with pain, but she forced herself to move. "The battle... What is happening?" Dae-sung was there beside her. "The human fleet is attacking the Krath in space, on the ground. The Krath are pushing toward the capital. Commander Veth is trying to hold them back, but there are too many." Yuna was already pulling on what remained of her armor. Her left arm was wrapped in bandages, barely functional. Her ribs were cracked. She could feel blood seeping through her wounds. None of it mattered. "Take me to the front lines," she commanded. "You will die," the doctor said. "Your body cannot handle more combat." Yuna looked at him with her dark, steady eyes. "Then I will die fighting. That is how humans leave this world." They brought her to the front. The battle for the capital was fierce and terrible. Krath soldiers poured through the streets, burning and destroying everything in their path. Volani defenders fought desperately, but they were being pushed back step by step. When Yuna appeared, still bloody, still broken, still standing, something changed. The Volani saw her and felt their courage return. She was supposed to be dead. She was supposed to be finished. But she was here, walking toward the enemy, weapon in her hand. "Follow me," she called out, her voice carrying over the sounds of battle. "Today, we teach the Krath what it means to face humans and those who fight beside them." She led the charge herself. Her 300 trained volunteers moved with her, using everything she had taught them. They did not fight like Krath, standing in lines and dying in rows. They fought like humans, smart and savage, using every advantage they could find. Dae-sung stayed close to Yuna, watching her back. At one point, a Krath soldier got behind her, raising his weapon to strike her down. Dae-sung shot him 3 times without thinking. His hands steadied despite his fear. Yuna turned and saw what he had done. "Good. You saved my life." Dae-sung was shaking. "I was afraid. But you acted anyway. That is what matters." The battle continued for hours. Slowly, impossibly, the Volani began to push back. The human tactics were working. The Krath were strong but confused, unable to adapt to an enemy that would not stand still and die properly. Queen Selavine watched from the palace, unable to stay away. She saw her people fighting, dying, bleeding for their world. Something broke inside her, something that had kept her safe and protected all her life. She turned to Tomal. "Prepare a medical team. I am going to the front." "Your Majesty, you cannot. It is too dangerous." "I am a queen," Selavine said firmly. "My place is with my people. I cannot fight like Sergeant Yuna, but I can heal. I can help. I can show my people that I am willing to share their danger." She went to the front lines not as a warrior, but as a healer. She moved through the battlefield, treating the wounded, holding the hands of the dying, giving comfort where she could. Volani soldiers saw their queen kneeling in the dirt and blood, caring for them, and they fought harder. Yuna found her near a collapsed building, bandaging a young soldier's wounds. "You should not be here," Yuna said, but there was respect in her voice. The queen looked up at her. "You taught me something, Sergeant. Courage is not about fighting. It is about standing when you want to run." Yuna smiled through her exhaustion. "You understand now." They were interrupted by a massive explosion in the sky. Everyone looked up to see Warlord Gorath's flagship moving into position directly above the capital. It was huge, larger than any other ship in the fleet, and something was happening at its center. Energy was gathering, growing brighter and brighter. "What is that?" the Queen whispered. Commander Veth's voice came through the communication device, filled with terror. "It is a planet-killer weapon. Gorath is preparing to destroy the entire continent. If he cannot win, he will make sure no one survives." In space, Captain Ji-won's voice was frantic. We cannot reach the flagship in time. Our ships are engaged with the Krath defense forces. We have nothing that can stop the weapon. Yuna was already moving. She found a shuttle, small and fast, and began powering it up. Dae-sung grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" "Someone has to stop that weapon. The human fleet cannot reach it in time." "I can." "You will die." Yuna paused and looked at him. Her face was calm, peaceful almost. "Maybe. But if I do nothing, everyone dies. This is not a hard choice." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "You have learned well, Dae-sung. Lead our people when I am gone. Show them what we taught you." She climbed into the shuttle before he could respond. The engines roared to life, and she lifted off, flying straight toward the massive flagship and the glowing weapon that would kill a world. Queen Selavine watched the small shuttle rise into the burning sky. She did not pray because she did not know if the gods were listening. She just watched and hoped and felt her heart breaking. The human had given everything for strangers. Now she was about to give the only thing she had left, her life. The shuttle crashed into the side of Gorath's flagship. Yuna did not try to land properly. She aimed for a weak point in the hull and flew straight through, letting the explosion carry her inside. She emerged from the wreckage already fighting. Krath soldiers surrounded her, but she moved through them like water through stones. Her body was broken, but her spirit was fire. Every step brought pain. Every breath was a battle, but she kept moving, kept fighting, kept pushing toward the center of the ship where the planet killer waited. She killed dozens of Krath on her way. They came at her in waves, and she cut them down one by one. Her sword broke, so she used her knife. Her knife was lost, so she used her hands. When she could not stand, she crawled. When she could not crawl, she pulled herself forward with her fingers. Nothing would stop her. Nothing could stop her. The corridor to the main chamber was filled with Gorath's elite guards. 50 of the largest, strongest Krath warriors, all standing between Yuna and her target. She looked at them with eyes that held no fear. Move or die, your choice. They charged. The fight was brutal and bloody. Yuna took wound after wound, but she did not fall. She twisted and struck and dodged and killed, leaving bodies behind her like leaves falling from a tree. When the last guard fell, she was barely able to stand. Her armor was gone. Her weapons were gone. She was covered in blood, most of it her own. But she was still alive, and the door to the main chamber was open. Warlord Gorath was waiting for her. He stood beside the glowing planet-killer weapon, his massive body filling the room. His 4 eyes watched her with hatred and something else, something that looked almost like respect. "Little human," he growled. "You should not be alive. You should not be here." Yuna limped into the room. "Your soldiers tried to stop me. They failed." "I see that." Gorath moved away from the weapon controls. "You have fought well. Better than any creature I have ever faced. But it ends here. The weapon will fire in minutes. Even if you kill me, you cannot stop it." "We will see." Gorath attacked. He was even larger and stronger than the Blood Sun had been. His fists were like hammers, his movements fast despite his size. He hit Yuna and she flew across the room, crashing into the wall. She stood up. He hit her again, harder. She felt ribs breaking, tasted blood in her mouth. She stood up. "Why?" Gorath roared. "Why do you keep fighting? You are nothing, a small, weak creature from a meaningless planet. You cannot win." Yuna looked at him with her dark, steady eyes. Blood ran down her face, but her voice was calm. "I am not just one human," she said. "I am every human who ever stood against darkness, every soldier who died protecting the innocent, every mother who fought for her children, every friend who gave their life for another." She took a step toward him, then another. "Their strength flows through me. Their courage is my courage. Their love is my weapon." She pointed at him with her broken hand. "And you? You are nothing. a bully who hurts the weak, a coward who hides behind armies. You have no love, no honor, no purpose. That is why you will lose. That is why you have always been destined to lose." Gorath screamed with rage and charged at her. He was faster, stronger, bigger. He should have killed her easily. But Yuna was not trying to fight him. She was trying to reach the weapon controls behind him. She ducked under his first swing, rolled past his second. He grabbed her leg and threw her, but she used the momentum to fly toward the control panel. Her fingers touched the buttons. Gorath grabbed her from behind and squeezed. She felt bones cracking, organs failing, but she did not stop. She kept pressing buttons, entering commands, overriding the weapon's controls. "What are you doing?" Gorath demanded. "Reversing the energy flow," Yuna whispered. "The weapon will overload. It will destroy this ship. And you." Gorath threw her across the room. She hit the wall and slid down, unable to move. He rushed to the controls, trying to stop what she had started. But it was too late. The weapon was building power, too much power, feeding back into itself. Warning lights flashed. Alarms screamed. "No!" Gorath howled. "You cannot do this!" Yuna smiled from where she lay broken on the floor. "I already did." The ship began to shake. Explosions started in the lower decks. Gorath looked at the human who had destroyed him, and for the first time in his life, he felt true fear. The planet killer exploded. The flagship came apart in a ball of fire that lit up the sky above the Vallani capital. People on the ground watched in shock as the massive ship broke into 1,000 burning pieces. Queen Selavine fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "No," she whispered. "Please, no." The battle ended quickly after that. Without Gorath, the Krath had no leader. Without their flagship, they had no hope. They surrendered or retreated, their fleet broken and scattered. The human ships let them go. There had been enough death. 3 days passed. The Vallani buried their dead and began to rebuild. The human fleet stayed in orbit, helping where they could. Everyone mourned the sergeant who had given everything for a world she had never seen before. Then a rescue team found something in the wreckage. A life pod, small and damaged, floating among the debris. Inside, barely alive, was Han Yuna. She woke up in the palace medical center. Everything hurt. She could barely open her eyes. But when she did, she saw Queen Selavine sitting beside her bed. The queen was holding something in her hands. The Vallani bloom, the small white flower with silver petals. It was crushed and stained with blood, but it was still whole. "You kept your promise," Selavine whispered. "You came back." Yuna smiled weakly. "I told you. Humans protect what they love." In the weeks that followed, the Vallani celebrated their survival and their victory. The Krath Collective fell apart without Gorath's iron will holding it together. The threat was over. Queen Selavine offered Yuna anything she wanted: wealth, titles, land, a ship to return to Earth. Yuna asked for only one thing. She wanted to stay. She wanted to help rebuild. She wanted to train a new generation of Vallani defenders so they would never be helpless again. The queen agreed, tears in her eyes. Years later, visitors to the Vallani homeworld would see a statue in the central plaza of the capital. It showed a small human woman standing with a sword in her hand, looking up at the sky. Beside the statue was a plaque with words in both Vallani and human languages. It read, "Legends are not born from nothing. They are born from those who refuse to let darkness win." And in a training yard nearby, an older Yuna, her scars faded but never gone, taught young Vallani how to stand when they wanted to run, how to fight when they wanted to hide, and how to protect what they loved until their hearts stopped beating. The myths had become real, and the galaxy would never forget.